my mom said this saying, and I thought it was really good. It was saying, stirred shit always smells.
Oh my God, I love your mom.
When you ruminate in something, when you just keep playing it over and over and over in your head, you know, it doesn't make it better. In fact, you ultimately start to smell like it.
Yeah.
And I think that I had to start, which was a slow process, but I had to start not looking at it as shit, but looking at it as manure.
Mm.
And I think there's a difference between those two
Oh, yeah.
because manure is something that ultimately, when it's processed correctly, it actually helps you to grow.
Mm. Welcome. I'm Jen McDowell, and you're listening to Through the Shit, a podcast for anyone going through the shit and the people who love them. In every episode, we'll hear a new story of loss, hope, and resilience, and how going through the shit led to something greater. So if you're in the shit now and feeling lost or alone, disconnected from your badass self, or in need of an ember of hope to keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're in the right place. So settle in, prepare to be moved and inspired, and welcome to the shit. Welcome, everybody. This is Through the Shit, where we hear stories of triumph over tragedy and all of the amazing things that can come out of going through the shit. Today's guest is Crystal Duke, and I am so excited to have her here. She's going to be telling us a story about something that happened about 15 years ago that was a really tragic event and turned her life upside down. And it caused her to question everything from her faith to her identity to her sense of purpose. And it taught her lessons that she probably didn't even want to learn about what it means to navigate pain. So, Crystal, welcome. I am so glad to have you here today.
Well, it's an honor to be here, Jen, and I appreciate you allowing me this space to share.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that we both have, a sense of camaraderie just because of how we've met and then our journeys, which we know is sometimes messy, but it always is on the other end, a beautiful story.
Yeah, yeah. And to that point, before I go through your, formal bio, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about how we met? Because you kind of were there on the cusp of when my shit was starting to go sideways. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll give a quick version. This is what I remember because everybody has their different version, right? So I met Jen and her husband at a friend's Thanksgiving, and I was dating a guy at that time, and he was a professor, and you were looking at going down that path of teaching again, and you exchanged phone numbers, and then he said, "You know what? I met this couple at the party. We're going to have a double date." And I was kind of set back a little bit, like, okay. But we went on this date. I didn't think it was that great of a double date. I don't know. I
Ouch.
just wanted to tell you that. I thought you were great. It was just one of those moments where I'm like, okay, well, it was a one-off, you know. And I remember coming back from the holidays and you had reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to do another double date? And I'm like, yeah, I broke up with him. So this is a little awkward.
Oh my gosh, I remember
And you're
that.
like, well, you just want to hang out, just the two of us? I'm like, sure. And that's how our friendship started. And soon after that, COVID really hit, and Chicago, and that's where both of us were living at the time, shut down.
Mhm.
And it was a really just tricky time. And you might remember this or not, but two things you did during that period of time. One, you found me some Lysol, and that was a big, huge
It was
deal.
like
You're like,
20
I found
bucks.
Lysol, right? And then one time you were such of a gracious friend and you brought me over some brownies and some
Yep.
flowers because in Chicago, it really was shut down. Like you did not visit people, people did not visit you. It was very an isolating time. And breaking up with somebody and being isolated like that, you really did need to have
Yeah.
some level of normalcy in terms of connecting with
Mm.
people. And um, So that really bonded us. And then we both decided to do this really great thing called entrepreneurship at the same time. And we're like, this is great. This is going to be wonderful. And I remember us sitting in a restaurant and we were just going through our plans. And little did I know what that really meant.
Yep.
And lots of stuff happened between then and
Yep.
today, but we've kind of just been tag teaming along the way, the good, the bad, the ups and the downs, and just really been each other's cheerleaders through this very tumultuous journey called entrepreneurship.
Yes. And I remember both of those things about, the course of our evolving friendship. And yeah, I'm just grateful to have had you on my side as I've gone on this roller coaster. And I think it's been interesting that our paths have really paralleled one another. When I'm up, you're up. When I'm down, you're down, right? And it's just
100%.
sort of like, okay. But here we are, 5 years in. It was 6 years ago. It was
Oh
6
my
years ago this
gosh.
Thanksgiving that we met. So, and we're going strong. So,
Yeah.
okay. So let me do your bio and then we'll go in. Okay.
Okay.
Crystal is founder of CLifeFit. That is the business that she founded when we were talking about it over lunch at the restaurant a couple of years ago. And she is a multi-certified health coach, fitness trainer, and speech language pathologist with over 15 years of experience helping others bridge the gap between knowing and doing. Through CLifeFit, she creates transformational wellness experiences that connect faith, fitness, and personal growth. Her programs equip clients to build healthy habits, find balance, and live with intention in both mind, body, and spirit. Drawing from a rich clinical background and years of coaching experience, Crystal integrates evidence-based strategies in nutrition, fitness, and mindset with biblical principles to guide individuals towards sustainable lifestyle transformation. Her unique approach blends science, faith, and compassion, helping clients move from information to transformation. Crystal, welcome again. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. Fabulous job.
Thanks. Okay.
Sometimes I'm like, who are you talking about?
I know, right? It's so humbling to have someone hear them read your bio.
I
It's like,
know. I know.
God, I've got my shit together in spite of what I'm about to tell you. Yeah. Okay. So this podcast is all about, these experiences where we go through the shit. And the listeners have heard me talk about what that means to me over the course of, several episodes at this point. So tell me, for you and your story, what does this idea of going through the shit mean to you?
I think it's when life hits and you don't think that it's fair.
Yeah.
And you don't deserve it and you're not prepared.
Yeah. And for me, I was like so ragey. I had so much rage as part of this process. And it sounds like you did too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to add before we get into it?
I would say that when you're in this space of, like you said, ragey, or for me, it was just like, how it's like fight, flight. I was more like freeze. Like, I just really can't believe this is happening to me. And at some point, I'm going to wake up. I think it really does lend itself to, being in a place where you have a decision to make. And that decision can propel you forward or keep you stuck.
Yeah.
And I think we all are going to be faced with challenges in our life that make you angry, make you want to fight or freeze. But in those moments, it's those critical decisions that are going to affect how and if and when you get through to the other side.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's the hard part about this period of being in the shit, right? Is like you have to sometimes make these really big, important decisions when you are not operating on all your cylinders, right? And how
100%.
do you do that when you are just at half capacity? Okay. All right. Well, are you ready to get into it and tell me your shit?
Absolutely.
Okay. Tell me your
Absolutely.
Tell me your shit.
So for me, it happened about 15 years ago, and it was the loss of my dad. And just a little background about my dad, he was a very physically fit man. He was a physical therapist by trade, and so health and wellness was just a part of his identity. And so when he was diagnosed with colon cancer that metastasized to his liver, it was a shock to everybody. And I was a traveling therapist at the time, and I was living in California. And coming from a Christian background, there's just an ideology that um, sometimes we buy into that good things don't happen or bad things don't happen to good people.
Mm,
And that if you pray enough and you have enough faith, that God will hear you and He will change your circumstances.
yeah.
And that miracles will happen and that they can happen the way you want to write the script. And you just have to put the work in and you will get the outcome that you want.
Mm,
And so I was ready to roll my sleeves up and do all those things. And I did. I came home from California, and in the 6 months that my dad lived, I think I probably was not by his side, maybe 2 days out of the 6 months. So I saw the deterioration happen right in front of my eyes, but would not allow my mind or my heart to process anything but this is going to be a miracle.
mm,
So you can imagine when he took his last breath, my level of not being prepared
yeah.
and confusion and anger and feeling of loss and um, not knowing that everything that I built my foundation on, if any of it was ever true.
Yeah.
And so it took a long time for me to even begin to start to rebuild. And I was stuck for a very, very long time.
Mm, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. There's hearing it again, I've heard it, I know several times over the course of our friendship, but hearing it again just brings up so much for me because I've also lost my dad. It'll be 20 years next year. Also colon cancer, also very rapid. Um, and I remember that was probably the first. I felt like at the time I was sort of waning from my faith as an adult, as I kind of started to sort of see more about what the world was all about. But that was the time where I really felt a significant break, one that I haven't recovered from, quite frankly. Um, and so, yeah, I can appreciate how that really just sort of fundamentally changes who you are and how you go about the world and the identity that you have as a person.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like when you're in that space, it really is important to surround yourself with people that are going to help restore. I think ultimately everybody has to figure that out for themselves, but um, it really is quintessential that um, in order for your faith to be rebuilt, is that you have to allow yourself grace and you have to be honest. Because if you believe that there is a God, and if you believe that He is who He says He is, He already knows the pain and He already knows the hurt and He already knows the level of distrust and anger that you have. So you have to start with just a, an awareness of not only where you're at, but being honest and to be raw and be able to sit in that for as long as you need to sit in it.
Mm. Yeah. So let's go back a little bit if we can, if you're comfortable doing so. That moment where, was there a moment where you went from praying to realizing, oh, like this miracle is not happening? Or was it really when he took his last breath?
I'm going to be like really transparent to just show you how far down I was. Like my father, I remember giving him CPR
Hmm.
and him taking his last breath. And we had been up with him all night. And he was at the hospital the night before. So very little sleep. But in my mind, I thought, we're just going to take a nap and I'm going to get up and we'll raise him from the dead. That's just literally, it wasn't even his like taking his last breath. I'm like, like I was that
Mm.
incapable of processing that he was gone. You know,
Yeah.
I just couldn't even fathom that that was a possibility.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we set ourselves up because in that moment, it was either I didn't give God an option of any choice, but he was going to be healed. And I think that and it's not a scapegoat, but you have to say whatever your will is. And I didn't give God that option. And so when you don't have another option and your only answer is answer A, and B and C and D is not even an option, and it definitely is an A, then you really hit a wall
Yeah.
super hard and super fast.
Yeah.
But to me, honestly, like I would not recommend anybody going down the path that I did, but I was so fragile at the time that I just could not see my life without my dad. So I could not see any other option.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that experience where you're expecting option A, right? And it's not even B,
Yeah.
C, or D, or E, it's option
No.
Z, right? It's the thing that you are not even contemplating, and
Oh,
I
absolutely.
can only imagine how
Absolutely.
that knocked the wind out of your sails and just kind of knocked you on your butt, but,
Yeah.
I think the question then becomes, because I remember sort of that moment in my parade of horribles where it was like, I just don't even know what to do with myself. And so, how did you continue to get yourself out of bed every day? That first day that you woke up and it's like, okay, we are not bringing him back from the dead.
Mhm.
How did you keep getting up and out of bed?
I can't tell you
Mm.
um, because for probably a year, I was walking around like a zombie. I am grateful for the fact that our pastor did put us in a grief recovery program immediately after, um, maybe 2 weeks after. And I was raw throughout the whole thing, but I remember standing up distinctly the first day of the class, and everybody had to give
Mm.
a little um, that skirt of why they were in the class and what they were grieving. And I remember people standing up and saying that they were grieving divorces, they were grieving deaths, they were grieving um, childhood abuse. And some of them, the grief was 10 years, 15 years in. And I remember thinking to myself, as horrible as I feel right now, I do not want to be here 10 years from now. I do not want to be here 5 years from now. Like, I don't know how I'm going to figure this out, but this club that I'm in right now that I never wanted to be a part of, I want to get on the other side.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember, going through my parade of horribles. That was one of the lessons that I kind of learned is, okay, I cannot continue to push this down because it is going to eat me alive. Um, and so being able to find a mental health professional who could sit with me in those moments as I kind of started to unpack all of that was really, really important and critical to my moving on. Yeah.
And why do you think that? I was actually with a client yesterday, and um, he's got a lot of issues. But the one thing I said to him that I really applaud is the fact that um, he's a life learner.
Mm.
And I think that, when you are in a space in your life where you realize that, listen, I need help and I don't have all the answers. And if I have the tendency, which I think both of us do, like that we can fix it or we're the leaders or we're the answer to the questions, but to be in that space of humility where it's like, I need to find a resource set to be able to help me to get
Mhm.
through this space. I think that that is a phenomenal place to start. And I can remember sitting on the bed in such of a dark hole. I didn't understand what grief and depression really was up until that point. And I remember my pastor talking to me on the phone. And I remember saying, damn, I just don't believe anymore.
Mm.
And he said, Crystal, it's okay. He said, I will be that bridge until you get back there again. And I think God will bring people in your life during these really dark times to be a convolute for you when you are in such a deep place. And the church that I go to is a very, very large church. It was just, he's an extremely busy man, but for probably the first 2 or 3 months, he would call every week and
Mm,
talk to each one of us. And it was, he didn't take the place of God, but he allowed me to be raw and to be transparent. And he consistently showed up in
mhm.
my life until I could get my wings back again and fly.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have those people spiritually and emotionally mature to stand in the gap for you
Yeah, oh, yeah.
when you just can't stand for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great advice to anyone who may be listening who is a loved one of someone going through the shit. That consistent, non-judgmental presence makes all the difference because I know on the days where I could barely get from the bed to the couch, it was the belief that other people had in me that made all the difference, and they continued to show up day in and day out. Yeah.
Amen. And I believe that's when God says that we are the feet and the hands of Jesus. That's what that means. And I
Yeah.
think we're looking for other people to do that, but that's what it means when we are those conduits of good and love and nurturing and unconditional love that
Mhm.
he's commissioned all of us to do.
Absolutely, yeah. So be that person, be that lifeboat, that
Yes,
buoy for the people in your life.
100%.
So I think that's a great segue to another question of like what other resources were valuable to you during this time. You talked about the grief recovery group, you talked about surrounding yourself with people. I talked about my mental health professionals who supported me. Tell me about other things that were helpful to you during that time.
I think one of the things that I had to realize is that, you know, um, my mom said this saying, and I thought it was really good. It was saying, stirred shit always smells.
Oh my God, I love your mom.
So when you ruminate in something, when you just keep playing it over and over and over in your head, you know, it doesn't make it better. In fact, you ultimately start to smell like it.
Yeah.
And I think that I had to start, which was a slow process, but I had to start not looking at it as shit, but looking at it as manure.
Mm.
And I think there's a difference between those two
Oh, yeah.
because manure is something that ultimately, when it's processed correctly, it actually helps you to grow.
Mm.
It's a point of growth.
Wow.
And I had to take small steps with not only a grief class, but even rebuilding my faith. And then also using the pain as a tool to help other people. Because I was a therapist at that time I was doing home health therapy. So a lot of times I was going into homes where there was people who were dying in hospice. And I had a deeper sense of empathy and compassion and be able to sit with people who I didn't have before. And I thought I was a pretty sympathetic, empathetic person prior to then.
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't just death now, it was like understanding that you have life is so precious and it's a gift from God. And we don't know how long we have, but to be able to show up authentically um, in our lives and things that we took for granted and petty things that, we perseverate on um, to hold ourselves at a higher standard um, and to be able to say that although this was painful, and even after all these years, I still say, God, I think you could have done something different, right? Because I want to say this, that especially if you come from a Christian foundation, you'll hear people say, well, on the other end of this, I learned this and I'm glad it happened. Still not glad it happened.
Yeah.
15 years later, still not glad it happened. Still don't understand the why. But I know that I've grown from that. And I think that that's really important for people, a level of sensitivity they have in terms of meaning good. Like we want to fix it, we want to for it to ultimately make sense in the end. And I think sometimes in life we have to resolve to the fact that sometimes it will never make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're touching on something really important. There's this idea of a binary, right? Like, oh, I'm so glad it happened. But I'm hearing you say, no, you're not. And I think that's a function of how much you loved your dad, right? Like, you would still love to be able to give him a hug today and have him with you today. And notwithstanding that piece of grief that you still continue to carry, you are far enough removed from it now that you can say, I've learned something from it, even though you can't say, I'm glad it happened.
100%. 100%. And I think it's a level of growth and maturity because I think sometimes when we think of things that happen that are tragic, there is, the rule of thumb or the people in the on a team of I feel like entitlement of like life should just be easy for
Mm,
me, right? It should work out for me. And we know that that's not real. But then there's another rule of thumb where people think that if I work hard and I do everything that I need to, um, then my work should equal the outcome that I'm striving to
mhm,
achieve. And that's where I was. That's the camp that I lived in for a very long time.
mhm.
Um, that input equals output, and that's not true.
Oh, yeah. And I think I've even said that same thing to you as recently as this year. I would find myself having conversations with my therapist about like, I have done the work. I have felt the things. I have done the work. I've cried
100%.
my eyes out. uh, I shouldn't I be over this, right? And that tends to just make it worse. I mean, my therapist at the time, I think, called it the second arrow, right? Like the first arrow is the arrow of the loss or the event or whatever. And then that story or narrative that we tell ourselves, or maybe that other people maybe unintentionally tell us to get over it, or, oh, it's been a year already and you're still really sad. And
Mhm.
that second arrow can, be the one that does you in.
100%, 100%. And I do think that there is a time where we have to um, ask ourselves a question, which is like a reality check that, you know, in life, there's going to be things that are just we're not going to win. It's, we're going to be, it's going to defeat us. Um, but are we going to stay defeated?
Yeah.
That's where it is. We will experience defeat, but we don't have to be defeated.
Yeah.
And it's not if or when we're going to get an obstacle. It's how long we stay down when that obstacle or that defeat happens.
Hmm.
That's going to determine whether or not we're going to get back up and move forward, or we're going to stay there.
Yeah. And I have seen this with every single one of my clients. It's not really a matter of if you get back up, you will get back up. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, if you choose to, because some people would like to ruminate and continue to smell like the shit,
Mm. I
right?
probably smelled like the shit. Uh, I probably smelled like the shit. But fortunately, those around me were kind enough to not tell me. So, um,
And you know what? You said a good point. You had people around you because I think that that is a key back to what you said, what helped you get through. I think it's really important to surround yourself with a community of people who, because you can you can choose to surround yourself with people who smell just as bad as you are,
mhm.
or you can choose to surround yourself with people who smell your stinky self and will call you out on it in a loving way. And I think that I heard somebody say something that when we speak truth without love, it's just being mean. But when we speak love without truth, it's meaningless. But when we add truth and love together, it will cause us to grow
Truth and
and that
love.
person to grow.
Yeah. So this might be a bit of a wild card for you. So what would you say to someone who feels like, okay, I'm smelling like shit and I don't have anyone around me? What would you say to them?
Mm, it's a good question. Well, I'm always going to go from a faith. I feel like uh, because of my faith in God, I always say start and end there, but at least try to start there and ask God to send something or someone to you to help you in that process. I think that um, what you did uh, is what most people have to do, that you have to reach out and take the first step.
Hmm.
Say that I need help. There's a lot of resources out there, whether it's spiritually based, like a church, or some type of like support group or counseling. There's so many things that you can do in terms of reading, literature, podcasts like yours, um, all types of resources that are at our fingertips through the internet that we can start. Um, I would also say that most of the times I find in my life and others is that when we stop focusing on ourselves and start to focus on somebody else,
Mm,
it will start the process. I think sometimes we're so in much pain um, that we don't realize that there's other people that maybe don't have the same pain as you are, but there's still something you can give.
yeah.
And I think the best way to start to heal is to start to give something. You know, you might not have the emotional ability to give something, but you can cook some pasta for somebody, right? You might not have the finances, but you can sure give somebody a smile or a hug or say hello. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's really important to be intentional about wanting to see change in your life
Mm,
because I think honestly, it's really much more easier to stay in the shit.
yeah. One of the things that you said earlier that I wanted to come back to was this idea of being on autopilot. You said that you were on autopilot for the better part of a year. And I remember when my dad died, it was probably 6 months or so. Um, that I was on autopilot, and I remember the shift coming for me with that was that I started to refer to him in the past tense. And so that was sort of my first indication that I was coming out of it a little bit. And so I'd love to hear for you if you think back to that moment where you started to have that glimmer of, okay, I think I might be coming out of my shit.
Mm. Well, not particular for my dad. He passed away um, 2 days before Christmas.
Mm,
So, and Christmas is huge for our family. And I remember the first Christmas after my dad passed. And it would be like for the next 3 years, when it hit September, I start to get very anxious. And we as a family decided that we could not be home for
mm,
Christmas. So that's when we go to Jamaica or something that didn't even look anything like. I'm from Ohio, so no snow, no snowman, no nothing, right? I was just like, we don't want any resemblance of Christmas. No Christmas tree. I think we might have put up a wreath, and I remember this is a year like every year would be a whole different theme of how we would
yeah.
do our Christmas. And I remember the first year that we decided to do Christmas at home was when I really came to grips with the new norm. And
Yeah.
I would tell anybody this. I have a friend just had a recent loss of her father. I say, when you're in this grief stage and you're just trying to get out, don't pick the wound. which I mean by that is like, if it's extremely painful for you to do what you normally did, don't do it.
Yeah.
It's okay. Give yourself grace to know that that's too painful right now. I'm not saying you won't revisit that at some point in your life, but when it causes so much pain or anxiety and you want to keep the tradition going, or this is what we always used to do, but it's just tearing you up inside, just shelve it for a little bit. I
Yeah.
promise you that there'll be a time where you'll come back to it. And even if you don't, you'll find a new normal. You'll
Yep.
find a new way of doing something that feels just as good as what the past was. And then you can look at it in a more healthier way. But
Mm,
for me, when I started to really completely feel like I was in complete, I guess, surrender or acceptance is when we were not only able to celebrate Christmas, but then bring all my dad's family over
yeah.
and, do that celebratory thing with them.
Yeah. Give yourself permission for it to look different than it used to.
100%.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. And I would
Absolutely.
definitely recommend for you to kind of, you know, listen to your body, listen to your heart, listen to your spirit when those things start to arise where it just is so um, painful. Don't push through those, especially for the first year. Don't push through them. It's okay.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier. You talked about this experience really becoming a tool to help other people. And so I'd love to
Mhm.
hear from you. How did this experience, losing your father so tragically, really propel you forward in your life and your career?
Mm. I think the word that comes to my mind is
Mm,
resilience. And when I think about my dad, I know that he is in heaven in a better place, but I also hear him in my head those times where I want to give up. And I feel like sometimes in our lives, when we have a loss so great, it's because that person poured so much into my life. And I know that he would be very disappointed if I stopped living, I stopped growing, I stopped believing. And what he invested in me, I could not allow that to go to
mm,
waste. I owed that to him. And so that was a propeller for me to move forward in what he had invested in me. And, there were people that were in my life, like my mom, who I'm like, okay, I have to be there to be a support system to her. Um, and then how it propelled me in my career is that I learned how to take a risk
mm.
and love hard again and live with intentionality, um, and knowing that um, the fact that I don't always get what I want um, is a part of life, but I never want to not grow, like, and regret staying safe.
Mm,
Um, and even though it was extremely painful to see my dad go through that deterioration of his body, um, it was the closest I've ever been to my dad
mm,
in my entire life. He grew as a man because he had to learn to trust me, and I was honored
yeah,
that this man trusted me in his most vulnerable state. So, although it was extremely devastating, I would never trade it, those precious 6 months
yeah,
with my dad. So, it propelled me in a way to honor life as a gift and to wake up every day, even on my bad days, and put both feet on the ground and say, thank you, God, for another day, and let me use it with the gifts and the talents that you've given me, um, because I don't want to have any regrets.
No regrets. Yeah. You said something about, you know, not wanting to sort of squander that investment that he made in you, and so it kind of pushed you to take some risks and things like that. I think that's a really important thing to call out because I know a lot of times when people are in this mode of grief or freeze, right? At least for me, I wanted to sort of curl into myself and be in the fetal position. And it took me a long time again to feel like I could kind of come out of that and take some risks. And because of so much of what had happened with me, coupled with, you know, the foundation of childhood trauma that I was
Hmm.
aware of, but didn't sort of see the big picture connections to, um, you know, it was a long time before I could come out and take that risk. And, you know, my brain had sort of trained myself to misperceive risk that wasn't even there. And so something that was
Yeah.
logically safe felt terrifyingly risky. And so, you know, that required a whole degree of unpacking too.
I love how you say that because I really think that there is a neurological component of this that we don't really focus in on,
Mhm.
but it's true. I think our body is always going to be wired to stay safe. And it is, your perception is your reality. And if you don't choose to take the steps to look at something different, better, or more, you will, um, your body neurologically will really trigger responses that make you feel that it is not safe. And I know that some people might buck on this, but not all feelings are true.
Mm. Yeah.
And even though they're true for you, but that doesn't mean that there can't be another way to look at it. And it does take a sense of courage to be able to peek your head out just a little bit, to say, maybe there's another way. And I think when you're like, I think you have to get up to a point where I've heard somebody say this before that most people don't change because they think that the change will be worse than where they
Mm.
are right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the grass is always no, what does it say? It's not the grass is always greener. Devil you know,
No,
right? It's the devil you know.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So when you were in that state of, I want to stay safe because taking a risk might mean more pain, then we have the tendency or the propensity to say, I just rather drink this poison.
Yeah.
I know what this tastes like.
Yeah, the comfort of what's familiar. Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
even if it's painful.
Yeah. And for me, I literally had to rewire the neural pathways in my brain to get over some of that. But yeah, that's a story for another day. Um,
But I want to just say this and just to say congratulations on that because I think one of the things that we have to celebrate is the fact that you, and because of what you did, is why we're sitting here today, is people have to realize that you got to do the
yeah.
work. And most people don't want to do the work, but there is, I always say that in life, there's a role that God plays and a role that you play, and he won't let you play his role and you can't, and
Mm,
he won't allow you to play his role and he also expects you to play your own.
yeah.
So there's a role you have to play if you want to get better.
Yeah. Do the work and keep doing it.
You,
Yeah.
you got it. Yeah.
So I think a couple final questions here. First one is looking back in this situation, and you said earlier, like, you're still not glad it happened. Is there anything you would have done differently?
Mm, yes. 100%.
Okay.
I would have allowed my dad to be okay with dying.
Mm,
Every time he would mention it, I'd run in and say, "That's devil talk." I did not want to hear that from him. He knew it. And I feel bad now that I didn't allow him the opportunity to communicate that and for that to be okay.
yeah.
So not only did he have to deal with being sick and dying, but he had to deal with not disappointing his family.
Yeah.
And I wish now that I would have given him the grace to say, Dad, what do you want? And whatever you want, and whatever you feel that this is what God's is for you, that I'm going to support you in that. Um, but I was kind of selfish
Yeah.
and I wanted him to be with me. And I just couldn't see anything other than that.
Yeah. I think that's a really common thing is just people, you know, love so much and they want to be supportive. And even their best intentioned efforts can fall flat sometimes. And being able to at least see the other person's perspective, I think is part of the process of building a bond that helps you go through it together rather than something that you endure separately.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that takes a level of spiritual and emotional maturity that I just didn't have
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
just didn't have it.
Still working on it.
Still working
Yeah.
on it.
Still
Still
working.
working on it.
Okay. All right. Final question. So, for someone who maybe is out there listening and is going through the shit now, what do you want them to know?
I would say, number one, that you're not alone. Number two, I'd say trust the process.
Mm,
And number three, I would say get help.
get help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. I'm going to put some links to resources like 988 in the show notes. Get help. Don't do this alone. There are people who can help and who want to help. So on that note, Crystal, thank you. It has been my pleasure to have you here today. And listeners, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the flip side. That's it for this episode of Through the Shit. Thanks for listening. If you liked this podcast, like, share, and subscribe, and maybe send it to someone who needs a boost because they're going through the shit. While you're at it, tell them how important they are to you. If you have a story of shit to share or you're in the shit now, I'd love to hear from you. Email me at throughtheshitpodcast@gmail.com or go to our website at throughtheshit.com. I'll see you on the flip side.